From the dawn of time, everyone has complained stupid hard about the choices they have made, but few people actually delete the save file and start all over. Video games seem to just be another medium for people to express their hate through something they love, especially in head-to-head environments. In Super Smash Bros. Melee, the temptations and envy of choosing different characters is a common feeling. It might be a matchup that makes you want to huck a Pearl White, or just a friendly session with a secondary that makes you rethink everything. But even successful players have left characters they were previously known for in the dust. With intros out of the way, here's Allston Melee's 10 players who switched mains. Number 10, Nintendude. The PAUN 2016 tournament organizer is a common face not only competitively, but also someone deeply involved with the back end of events. Having been the person who has written almost every current rule set Melee has had, not necessarily making all the decisions but being the one putting the pen to paper, the former 17th in the world Ice Climber player has done a lot for the scene throughout his years. Once dominating the MDVA rankings, he would return to local PRs with a number 2 placement all the way in NorCal. Along this road, he had accumulated a 7th place finish at the first Super Smash Con, top 8ing Genesis 3 with a dub over M2K, and a laundry list of other impressive placements. His top 8 placings at majors and wins on high-ranked players just depends on whatever time frame we put the clock to, as he's always been a consistent force at events. Nintendude would stay relatively inactive compared to his previous records for a decent portion of 2018. The argument for best in the world with Ices would clear the air on why he wasn't traveling anymore, stating that after hitting top 20 in the world and getting a sponsor like Splice, he was satisfied with how far he pushed himself, but he did not think the character he was playing could get anyone above top 15 level consistently. He would make it clear that this was not the end for his time in the Melee scene, but the start of a new beginning with Marth, and kinda expected drop in placements. Although Nintendude would indeed drop from his former spot of 4 to 12 on local rankings and stay around that area to this day, we do give the worst tag on this list major props for sticking through the mud with his character switch and continuing to travel to events. Taking the 81st slot on the 2019 MGPR, Nintendude makes our list for his commitment to restarting after feeling as if he hit his ceiling at top 20. Number 9, KJH.
Allston Melee's 10 reasons to quit playing Melee. Number 2, playing Prince of Boo and Duck every single fucking day.
When Michigan debuted their state PR in April of 2014, KJH was the 4th name from the top with a little blue bird next to it. He'd get noticed after getting 7th at Shuffle 5, losing to Zanguzin at a pretty damn stacked tournament in its own right. In late 2014, things changed for KJH in favor of the higher tiered spacey character. We would start to see the up-and-comer suddenly in placements we didn't previously see him. Having a breakout performance at Apex 2015, beating Plup in what was considered one of his best matchups, KJH was now a name to look out for almost immediately after switching. In April of 2015, 1 year after being the 4th name with the blue bird, KJH would take 2nd on the Michigan PR, but hopefully more rewarding than his in-region number was going from unranked in 2014 to number 48 the following year. After dropping Falco completely for Fox and being awarded top 50 for doing so, KJH would go on a Twitter rampage of his old character. He'd be ranked nationally in the 30s to 40s range every year since switching, in particular a 25th spot in 2018. He would eventually patch things up with the laser spamming unlockable bird, mostly due to playing Ginger in friendlies and enjoying it. KJH has held the number 2 spot in Michigan for 5 years now, and still to this day has yet to be ranked above Duck. Number 8, Santiago / Little Fumi. When the San Diego native showed up to his first tournament, he was playing predominantly Yoshi with a bit of Fox in the background. At some point very early, he befriended Ken, and was clearly always getting better, regardless of sporadic and almost random appearance at events. Now entering as his real name, in 2014, the now Fox main would become a recognizable face, not just in San Diego. Notably getting 13th at both I'm Not Yelling and Press Start 2015, Santiago's takeoff to the top seemed imminent. Traveling for Melee and finding himself at EVO, Santi would say the main reason he went to Las Vegas was to play teams with Ken. Making top 32 winner side at a tournament with almost 2,000 entrants, Santi would then drop to Pew Pew in the first round. Meeting one more of NorCal's finest and losers to play for 25th, the former Yoshi main shocked anyone scrolling to losers by defeating Shroomed 2-1, and who did he have next? Ken and Santiago would play on the same side recording he just beat Shroomed on. Santi's big moment after pulling off a crazy upset turned into having to go head-to-head with the person who helped him get better, teamed with at this tournament, and probably was even traveling and rooming with at the event. In all senses, this was a Karate Kid versus Master Sensei passing of the torch. Except it wasn't. Ken would win the loser set, 2-1, Marth Fox. Evo would be one of the last tournaments Santiago would play all Fox, making the switch to Falco with a strong Sheik secondary after. Dropping both characters he was known for at the beginning, Santi's switch to Falco would have its own celebrated journey. Having beaten almost any player in his near vicinity at this point, players like Hugs, Westballs, S2J, and Lucky were all players that at their local reigns fell to the few and far between competitor. Number 7, Jerry. Oh, current day Xanadu Grand Finals. How far we've come. Remember the olden days of VGBootCamp? TK Breezy and someone else accidentally creating future GR Smash videos? Now the hate Grand Finals between Jerry and Bobby Big Balls is the currently scheduled program, and honestly, kinda down. Once bouncing around tags, the Baltimore Fox main would break MDVA's top 10 in fall of 2016. Getting 5th the next go around and staying almost untouched for the local rankings after, we would see the MDVA power rankings go from Chudats and Nintendudes to Zanes and Polishes. In early 2018, the fighting game community was shocked to see Dragon Ball FighterZ be both a great experience casually and competitively. Most Smashers are at least aware of the game's competitive existence vicariously through Leffen. Also joining this ragtag crew of Smashers versus R Kappa would be our humble number 7. He raised question marks when he announced he'd be switching from Fox to Puff so he could dedicate time to Dragon Ball. And then, the same people who were surprised about his game or character switch did a triple take at the next slew of Xanadu results. He stayed the same, sometimes better. People thought it might just be locally. Then he beat
SFAT and Ice
at Super Smash Con 2018, cementing his legitimacy with the character. Jerry would find a Fox avatar next to his name, taking the 83rd spot in 2017 and boost up to the 50s range in the years after. Jerry would eventually refocus back to Melee and start playing the space animal he once left due to restructure and competitive priorities. Jerry takes the 7th spot on our list mostly for his pretty hilarious and somewhat theatrical story, and the character switch itself is drastic enough to gain a few points in our book. Number 6, Leffen. Teenage Leffen would ask for rides to Stockholm to play against some of the best players nearby. In the early days, he would bounce around between both Spaceys and Yoshi, but end up settling on Falco. Although Genesis 1 had already passed and Armada had put Sweden and Europe on the map, a 5.5-hour drive separated Swedish players like Leffen and the aforementioned Peach main. Someone he would find at his nearby locals would be Hack, a Marth and Kirby main. Hack would at the beginning help and soon just wash as Leffen made a mark on the local scene separated from the Lingrens. Although there is a misconception now that Leffen was also maining Yoshi at a time, he would play the double jump dinosaur against other European talent with a touch of disrespect and ill intent, possibly somewhat inspired by the similar shenanigans he witnessed with Hack's Kirby. In July of 2011, Leffen would travel to the US for the first time for the second Genesis. Although he might not have had a Genesis 1 Armada performance, the Melee scene would be made very aware in the years to come, if not already. Although Leffen's story would go on for years and generations after, this is kind of where Allston Melee's narrative of things end, as shortly after returning home and not meeting his personal goals overseas, Leffen would drop Falco for Fox McCloud, stating that on reflection he just wasn't sure what ultimately drove him to do so, but he just knew that this was something he had to do to break out of the mold he was being crafted into. Although Leffen's switch from making out of pools to debatably best in the world is the highest increase on paper throughout this entire list, something that really all of the players named after have is that when you think of them, you also think of the character they previously played, and that just isn't so true with Falco and Leffen. Number 5, Ice. Ice got his start by playing Melee in Berlin as early as 2008. Ice would find himself in a trifecta scenario with 3 damn good characters, playing Sheik, Fox, and Marth, and being nicknamed European Mewtwo King early in his career. The stud of a Melee player would be one of the first in his country to become a globally recognized top player. Now traveling semi-consistently, the days of switching character mid-set were over for Ice, as by 2012 he was mostly just picking Sheik all tournaments. Once becoming and maintaining the number 1 spot in Germany and number 3 in Europe after switching, he would be the only person to stand up to an invading Mango at Beast 3, as well as beating Leffen a handful of times, the only European player ranked above him that wasn't Armada. At Melee's biggest tournament to ever happen at the time, we saw Ice take 7th at EVO 2013, beating multiple top 20 talent. After showcasing the fact that he's a consistent force, Ice would find himself crushing on a past love when it came to the characters he played. pick, the now German Fox main would put his character switch up for contention at the beginning, following losses to Amsa and Professor Pro. But by the end of the year, we would see almost no damage regionally. Now growing into the Fox main we've grown to love him by, Ice would take 19th in 2014, previous to a commanding 7th place finish at Genesis 3, beating Plup, Cobalt, and many more playing all Fox. Getting picked up by Red Bull Esports in March of 2018, the Berlin-based once character specialist showed that switching off of Sheik was just a footnote in his career.
These next 3 players can be ranked in literally any order, but
Number 4, Shroomed. By 2011, now number 1 in NorCal, Shroom would go on an absolute tear of the Melee scene at the opportunities presented to him. 7th and up were the only placings he would get. We cannot express just how impressive, consistent, and overwhelming of a player Shroom was with Dr. Mario. There were a couple bumps along the way as he would frequently tear through losers bracket of any tournament dropping early in, but the top dogs of the scene would prove to have the ability to stop him. At Apex 2014, after losing in possibly the biggest upset of the tournament to Swiftbase in round 1 pools, he would ultimately fall to Ice for 13th. Both mad at himself and the character he'd been playing all these years, Shroom would make it clear that his days of playing Dr. Mario were over, as he did not think the character could be pushed much farther and was sick of feeling inconsistent. After about a year of trial and error in NorCal tournaments, by the following New Jersey major, Shroom would be playing mostly all Sheik in bracket. Unlike his previous Apex, Shroom would make it out of pools with no hassle. Then playing Silent Wolf, unfortunately for the now Sheik player, he would lose 2-1. Meaning Swiftbase in round 1 losers, Juwan would get virtual revenge in the form of a 2-0 victory. Then beating in Swedish Delight without dropping a game, he would play Axe for 13th place, the spot he unwillingly claimed last year. Shroom would beat Axe 2-1, but then most surprising of all, claim his first victory over M2K in 2-0 fashion. Shroom would then lose to Hungrybox in top 8 for 7th place, but this time the set would be game 5 instead of their previous washes. It was clear that something was different, and that something different stuck for the better. The sad part we have to mention is, unlike anyone else here, after Shroom stopped playing Dr. Mario, the character was seriously hurt competitively to the point that we weren't sure if we were going to see a Doc icon on the top 100 ever again. Aside from 2016, where Ryan Ford represented Doc with his 3rd character slot, it would take 6 years for a Doc main to make the rankings after Shroom did. It seems as if Dr. Mario's fate is in the hands of high school student France, and we are more than excited to see what the new generation has to offer. Number 3, Hacks Money. Have you ever top 8'd Genesis after graduating middle school? How about having the competitive scene watching you in interviews throughout literally your voice dropping? Or maybe explaining to your parents about the approaching hordes of 30-year-olds repeatedly asking you about your opinions on things like the Jigglypuff matchup. All of the above, Hacks has. After a 7th place finish at the 2nd revival of Melee in 2009, these new highs would become the expected turnouts for Hacks. Having claimed the spot of almost there for years, Hacks would see the death and birth of so many players' careers, but just couldn't get past the Hungrybox and Mangoes. Playing against Armada and Ice in hours of friendlies, Hacks would come to a somewhat depressing conclusion repeatedly after being bodied. Hacks would say, quote, "It taught me the realities I'd always feared. It just wasn't fun playing against opponents that turtled so hard and feeling as if you couldn't do anything about it." Trying to find an answer to his defensive woes in a blue hexagon, shortly after this time, Hacks would switch to Fox in hopes to be able to approach again. As time would go on, the NYC native would be known more for the ledge dashes and tech skill than the weak knee up air he was once recognized for. We would see Hacks' character switch only drop him from 6th in 2013 to 8th in 2014, as he was quickly able to beat the players he previously bested. After becoming the Fox main that would push task creations in real life, Hacks would talk the living out of the character he once reshaped, letting anyone who would listen know that Fox was the best character in the game and that Falcon was a low tier. Hacks would set the standard on how to switch characters. With only being number 3 on our list, but surely number 1 on a few others, Hacks' years of success followed by an almost toxic and insult-thrown breakup is a tale for the ages. The only reason that he isn't ranked higher than this spot is we believe the character switches from the last 2 players had bigger impacts on the scene and the characters they played. Number 2. Plup, California Girls by Katy Perry and Snoop Dogg, Inception starring Leonardo DiCaprio, and Glee covers of songs you kinda like are running rampant. Also, Plup entered a Melee tournament. The tournament result didn't really blow the roof off of anything, but it did get the eyes of a future Campbell's Chicken Noodle Soup sponsored player. Now teaming with Hungrybox at Florida events, throughout the following years, Juan would sing Plup's praises from the rooftops and let everyone know that an up-and-coming Samus player was bound to destroy top players in a matter of time. And then, in 2014, the claims that Hungrybox made years prior started to become a reality.
What is happening?
With Hugs and Duck both 20 plus spots below where Plup was, it was more than evident that he was the best Samus player in the world. At Apex 2015, expecting to see another consistent Samus performance, Plup would get kinda beat up by the future class of top level Melee players. Plup's 49th place at Apex 2015 was a huge conversation at the time. Plup, then ejected from the character he was best in the world with, would make a move that would obviously get him pretty high on this list. Plup would debut his Sheik to the world at Bad Moon Rising just 1 month after Apex 2015 and lose to only Hungrybox. But then, something really clicked. Plup would go from EVO 2015 winter semis to being the first person besides Leffen and the Gods to take a set off of Armada to winning Genesis. The reason Plup is over anyone else below him is simply for the fact that he really did what they all wanted to most of all, and that is switch to a new character and then win the goddamn tournament. We believe Plup to be the most beneficial character switch to ever happen in the game. But then how the hell do we have him at number 2? Number 1, Mango. Pound 3, losers run. I'm gonna stand up. Pound 3, losers run. The rest on Corneria. Genesis Grand Finals, first in the world, and then going Mario just to with people. Into Fox and Falco with a chance literally you, person watching this video, play Melee right now. Mango's switch from Puff to Space Animals is undoubtedly the number 1 character switch on our list because he went from first in the world to first in the world with completely different characters. Although it did take a few years to reach that number 1 spot again after dropping Puff, no one else can say that they were winning major events before and after fully switching mains except for Joseph Mango Marquez. Mango's losers run through Pound 3 holds up exceptionally well even to this day. His 10-set losers run through all of the best players in the world at that time will hopefully be conveyed through the words of grandfathers telling stories to their grandchildren, and damn it, we here at Allston Melee hope to be one of those grandparents. After helping redefine Puff's place in the tier list and showing an aggressive Puff playstyle that is still untapped to this very day, Mango started to play Falco because quote, people called me lame. He had beaten every top player with Puff and was now beating every player with Spaceys, and honestly, it's just blatantly clear to us that Mango should be number 1 on this list. As a final victory lap to both this entry and the video, here's Mango fucking up top ranks players to a slowed down version of All I Do Is Win, performed by T-Pain.
All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time I step up in the building, everybody hands go up. And they say yeah, and they say yeah, and they say yeah. 'Cause all I do is win, win, win. And if you going in, put your hands in the air, make them say that.
Ludacris going in on the first 'cause I never been defeated and I won't stop now. Keep your hands up, give me the sky for the homies that ain't making it my folks out there.